Do you remember when we in the restaurant industry were terrified of the looming $15 minimum wage and how it was going to affect, even destroy the restaurant business, your restaurant? Then came COVID and the labor shortage. For most of us in the United States, restaurants, well, they're starting employees much higher than $15 an hour in order to maintain a competitive edge amongst all the restaurants out there. Like the market has changed. I also have members in California who are telling me Los Angeles is proposing a $22 minimum wage. How does a restaurant survive, let alone thrive under these conditions? Stay with me and I'll tell you. Hey, the Restaurant Pro, this is Dave Scott Peters, restaurant expert, coach, and creator of the Restaurant Prosperity Formula. And today I'm going to talk about how to navigate these government and market-imposed wage increases. I want to start off with what might be not a very popular opinion, and that's this. I believe that this self-correction of higher wages was actually long overdue in our industry. I also understand more than most what a negative impact it can have on a restaurant who is only making a nickel on every dollar that comes in the door because they're running the restaurant the old school way. But for my members, they're still able to achieve a 15 to 20% profit margin even as wages continue to go up. How, you ask? Well, my friends, it's actually very simple, but not easy. This is the process I use with my members to help them not only survive, but thrive. Step one, you got to have a budget. Your budget is a review, if you will. Your trailing 12 months, you set up a template that says if I do the same sales mix, the same cost of goods sold, same labor, same monthly expenses, whether fixed or variable, here's how much money I'm going to make or lose. If I operate the next 12 months the same way I did the last 12 months, here's what I'm going to make or lose. Then we go through a process of what systems are we going to put in place to change those numbers? How quickly are we going to implement those systems? And what are the results I'm expecting? And so you create your proactive plan for success. Now, one of the key things in that proactive plan is understanding your prime cost, which is your total cost of goods sold, including labor cost, which includes taxes, benefits, insurance. So all of a sudden we look at their prime cost, food, beverage, labor, and we say, what do I have? Well, if you do $850,000 a year or less in sales, we're looking at a 60% prime cost. Above that number, we're looking at 55% or lower. And so all of a sudden we can change things by looking at, I could have a higher labor cost and a lower cost of goods sold and vice versa. Call it 30-25 or 25-30. Doesn't matter based on your core values, price point, style of service, your market conditions. It's going to be different. Now, it also means in this process, we can reduce our labor cost, we can reduce our cost of goods sold if we're willing to look at our menus, not be stuck. You may have to reduce your menu, number of items to reduce prep, to reduce the number of stations you have to operate with less cooks. You may want to reduce the number of cooks and the number of items in order to become more efficient because people are making the same items over and over again, which gives them speed. You might have to change your menu, some of the items on there, the ingredients, in order to lower your cost of goods sold. But with a budget, you can start to make the decisions. Do I run a higher food cost and run a lower labor cost, or do I need to lower my food cost in order to run a higher labor cost because a core value tells you that's what you need to do? Then there's step two, understanding that labor is not static. Well, see, when you have a budget, you're going to learn that your labor costs will be different every single month. We no longer can use this, industry standard, say a 33% labor cost and say it's all through the year. Because I got months where my sales are really low, my out of season. I've got salaried managers like Pac-Man eating up all my money, and I've got minimum staffing levels. I might have a 38% labor cost that month. But in season, my managers don't get paid anymore because they're salaried in this example. And my hourly people, well, I can't add another cook to the line. I can't add another server. I'm running out of space. I have the money for them, but I don't need space. I got a 2-hour wait. My customers are managing my efficiencies. And all of a sudden my labor cost is 19%. But ultimately we hit our target of, say, in our budget, 25%. Doesn't matter what the number is. I'm going to have this up and down kind of feeling with my labor cost, even if I'm steady. There might be slight changes. Whether I'm seasonal or not, I cannot know where my labor costs should be without a budget. By the way, this takes us to a point where step 3 is scheduling on budget. I have a budget, a target to shoot for, and now I need to put a system in place to make sure that I schedule next week on budget, only use the hours allocated. I have a system that I call the Restaurant Payroll Guardian that does exactly this. What it does is sets us up to break away from that myth of bring people in and pray you're busy. If you're slow, send them home. I got news for you. You're slow for 2 hours, 3 hours, and you're cutting, say, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. Doesn't matter what the number is, you've already lost money. The idea is let's stagger start people because we only have so many hours to use, and that's where the budget comes in again. Step 4, you need to hold your managers accountable. This is to your budget. So that Restaurant Payroll Guardian has your numbers to shoot for. You've got a scheduling software that is what you actually do. And then you put them side by side in what I call a labor discrepancy finder. And your job is to make sure your managers make those variances zero, if not by position, but for the whole week. And that's important to stay on budget. Step 5 is to track your labor. We're not only going to track our dollars, meaning sales and how much money we spent in labor, we also want to track our hours to make sure we can see if my sales were higher and I used less labor, or my sales were lower and I used more labor. What are my managers doing on a daily basis, which allows me to coach them to control my labor cost. Step 6 is understand labor efficiencies. There's something I call the labor efficiency finder. It's a calculation called dollars per labor hour worked. I have members where I've looked at their labor costs and go, man, you're doing well. Budget-wise, you're doing well, but they're in tip credit states or in other countries where their wages are lower. And all of a sudden I look at their efficiencies and say, hey, your cooks are only making about 8 customers worth of food every single hour, where you should be up closer to 20. That's where they're humming. While your labor cost is good, your efficiencies are bad, and we should become more efficient, driving our labor costs lower. You see, with a budget, scheduling on budget and holding managers accountable to a budget, you'll be proactively, creating your plan for success. You'll be executing your plan for success. You'll be verifying your plan for success versus, reactively working your business, being a victim to, my labor cost is high. Oh, we lost that money. Instead, you're adapting, you're changing, you're always course correcting. If you want to learn about my coaching program and how I can give you all of these systems and more, I want you to go to davidscottpeters.com, click on the link in the upper right-hand corner that says, watch my free video series, and opt in today. Be sure to join me live every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube, travel schedule permitting, where I'll get you pumped about the upcoming weekend, get you excited about crushing your goals and finding the motivation to be best you possible. Plus, I'll answer your burning questions live.